Yes. Good morning, Luis.
Hello, Eric. Bonjour. Good morning. Thank you very much for being here with us today. So let's get straight to our presentation and to your testimony about your experience with SAP Concur. So maybe we should start by a little introduction. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and the company you represent. Obviously, we all know the brand Cointreau. We all know the drink. It's very famous, but probably few people will imagine the company that's behind it. You want to give us a little picture of that?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, a few words about myself. So my name is Cédric Druet, and I'm the IT manager for the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East, Africa for Remy Cointreau. I've been with Remy Cointreau for about 4 years now, and the reason why I'm here today is because of my previous assignment with Remy Cointreau, which was as an IT finance project manager. Back in the time I was based in London, during which we conducted that project of implementing SAP Concur. Now, a few words about the company. So we are a producer and distributor of alcohol. So most of you probably know Cointreau. We have about 1,800 employees around the world, located in about 20 countries. So we have offices in about 20 countries, but we are present and we do business in more than 50 countries. And last bit of data, so our turnover is about 1 billion.
Okay, so thank you, Cédric. Probably many of us don't imagine that there is such a big company with so many people and such a high turnover behind, every bottle of Cointreau that we know and that we've drank in the past. So that's very interesting. So let's talk about travel and expense. You say you have 1,800 employees. So I would imagine, are some of them salespeople? I mean, you do distribution as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously we have back office teams, but the biggest part of our workforce is marketing and salespeople. So okay. These are people based on the field who travel a lot and who are in definite need of a travel and expenses tool.
Okay, and does this picture illustrate their situation at the end of the month when they have to
Yes.
to present their expense report?
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to go into details of why we implemented Concur in a few minutes, but this sums it up perfectly. A lot of paper receipts and a really poor end user experience before Concur.
And probably this could also be the picture of your travel and expense manager, whoever was in the back office dealing with all the expense reports,
mountains
right?
of paper.
Yeah. So how would you summarize the main reasons why you went out looking for a travel and expense report, apart from helping this poor person under the pile of papers?
So there were quite a few reasons why we looked into implementing a new travel and expenses tool. And the first one was that we as a group didn't have a global travel and expenses policy. So as I said earlier, we are present in about 20 countries. We have offices in about 20 countries, sorry. Remy Cointreau is a French company, so half of our workforce is based in France, but the rest of the world also has a lot of salaries, of employees, sorry. So the first point was to implement a global travel and expenses policy. So this is a policy that would define the thresholds, the amount of money you can spend for lunch or dinner or whatever in each city of the world. And we wanted to harmonize that. So that was the first point.
Okay, so need for consolidation, need for harmonize the entire process across the world through the same policy. Very well. And now I would imagine that a situation like this also generates a lot of inefficiency, a lot of how do you say, lack of productivity. Was this the case? Did you detect that you could perhaps be losing money by
yes,
not?
Absolutely. So in addition to Sorry, there's a bit of an echo.
No.
In addition to what I was saying earlier, so I spoke about the group travel and expenses policy, but the addition to that is to have a tool to be able to enforce this policy. The second reason why we wanted a tool to enforce the policy is cost control. So basically, to make a simple statement, before we implemented Concur, before we implemented a global travel and expenses policy, we had no control over our expenses when it came to travel expenses. Second item on this specific point, when you have no control over what you spend, you cannot report that, whether it's to line managers, so line managers cannot know how much their team spend, but also top management or also other services that have no clue about how much we spend for each vendor or for each, for an airplane ticket or for hotels or something like that.
Yeah, so sometimes even worse than losing money is not knowing that you're losing money, right?
Exactly.
And what about the employee experience? I mean, I would imagine that a situation like this could also be frustrating for some of your employees at the end of the month.
So yeah, we discussed it a bit earlier, but I think everybody knows how it feels. You have to fill in Excel sheets. You send that to accounting. There's no automation. You have to send paper receipts, etc., etc. I mean, there is no automation, and so some countries were using basic travel and expenses workflows, but we definitely needed to implement something for a better end user experience.
Yeah, nobody likes admin work or bureaucratic work, especially if that's not your main job or it's not contributing for the job you do. Okay, so those are very powerful reasons then to act. So then, of course, you went looking in the market, you browsed around, you looked for some solutions for travel management, travel and expense management. Obviously, you selected Concur, hence you are here today with us. So maybe that would be the next topic. So why SAP Concur?
Yes. So I mentioned three of the main topics on why we wanted to implement a travel and expenses tool. So the first reason was to implement one single travel policy across the group. So that was more of a business question. It was not exactly about selecting a tool. That was a basic statement that we needed one. The second reason was budget control. That's the same thing. So this was a statement on why to implement a travel and expense tool. The reason why Concur, so there are many bullet points to that list. The first reason is that at Remy Cointreau, we use SAP. So we use SAP as our ERP. And Concur is now a SAP company. So it's fully interfaced with SAP. So at Remy Cointreau, we use S4HANA. We used to use ECC. SAP Concur is interfaced with both of these systems. So when I'm talking about interface, this is the accounting interface that flows from Concur to your ERP for automatic payment, for example. In addition to that, there are two more interfaces that I would like to mention. So the first one is with travel agencies. So this is usually a big part of travel and expenses projects, I assume. That was the case for us, definitely. So we also interfaced our travel agencies with Concur directly, which means we book our trips directly from Concur. And the last interface to mention, we also use corporate credit cards at Remy Cointreau, and SAP Concur is also interfaced with most of the credit card providers.
Yeah. And there is such a big world of different vendors that can integrate with Concur, right? With your Uber, for example, hotel chains, rent-a-cars, where you book with them directly through Concur, and then the receipt comes, the invoice comes, and then it's an expense, and that list keeps growing. I would imagine that was a factor as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. So there are things that you could call a group integration. So basically, when you integrate a credit card feed, the group has control over that. But in Concur, you can also tell your employees that they can register their own Uber account directly in Concur. So your company doesn't necessarily have to control this.
Exactly. That's very interesting. And so other reasons why you went with Concur?
Yes, absolutely. So Concur is the leader on this domain, on travel and expenses tools. One of the main reasons, so Remy Cointreau is a global company. Most of our workforce is in France, but we have people in a lot of countries. And Concur can work in many different languages. So in our case, we implemented Concur in French and English, obviously, but also in Chinese, Japanese, Russian, and I think that's it for us. But a lot of different languages are available.
Yeah, truly global company, right? And you mentioned reporting a while ago. So was the reporting capabilities after you reviewed them, or was it something that pleased you and that influence the decision?
Absolutely. So we were talking about budget control. So you can implement your travel policy in Concur to control your budget. But at some point, you also have to extract KPIs. You have to be able to report on how much you actually spend. So this is one of the things that was attracting with Concur. Concur uses IBM Cognos as a reporting tool. So you already have a lot of default reports that are available in Concur based on employee reimbursement, but also how much do you spend per vendor, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of things. So that was definitely a major asset for Concur.
Powerful reporting capabilities. And I know that Sophia, she told us about SAP Concur Locate. So this module that makes sure that the company is always aware where their employees are and if they are in a dangerous situation, and if so, they can communicate with them. It's the well-known duty of care, the responsibility that every company has for their employees while they're traveling on behalf of the company. I know you didn't adopt the SAP Concur Locate. Nevertheless, you still use Concur for your duty of care. Do you want to explain us that?
Absolutely. So you're right. We didn't implement the Concur Locate module, and the reason why we didn't is because we already subscribe to a service with a company called International SOS, which is basically an international travelers insurance. So if I travel to any country and I book my flight through Concur, this company is aware of this and my employer is aware of this. So if anything happens in that specific country whilst I'm traveling, my employer is aware. So what I meant to say by that is that Concur is also interfaced with this kind of agencies. So we're not talking travel agencies, but in this case, International SOS is really an insurance company.
That's very interesting. So there's really no limits on the amount of integrations using the Concur integration capabilities to come around with different solutions. So you went on with SAP Concur. I know you have another commitment in 2 minutes, so we will try and
we can take a bit of time. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you. That's very, very nice of you. I'm sorry if the conversation flew a little bit longer than we expected. So Cedric, this is you. This is a project manager, because then you decided to go ahead with your SAP Concur project, meaning having to handle a lot of things, dealing with a lot of variables and people and situations and processes. How would you summarize what's important on an SAP Concur project? What are the key factors of success for you after your experience?
So there are different things to consider, and the first one is that implementing Concur is not an IT project. So this is really a business decision. This is led by your top management, and there's nothing technical about implementing Concur, except for the interface, obviously. It is really important to consider that implementing Concur is not an IT project. I saw that I skipped a bullet point, so I'm going to come back to this one. What was important in our case was to choose the right model to implement this tool. So at Remy Cointreau, we chose to implement Concur by waves. So that means that instead of going full scope with our 1,800 employees in one go, we started with the US, then we implemented Europe, and lastly, Asia. So we deployed it by wave, where in other countries it might be worth considering deploying it in bulk.
Each customer a different solution, a different situation, right? Absolutely. So we analyzed with you what was the best model that made sense for Remy Cointreau, and this was the one. Could have been a big bang approach, could have been in waves as it was, but choice of the right type of model that fits the organization.
Yes.
Very well.
Second point to consider regarding the model you deploy, once again, this was Remy Cointreau's decision. We deployed Concur with a core model approach. So as I was mentioning, more over half of our employees are based in France. There is a strong, how would you say, management lead coming from France all across the world. So we decided to have one global policy led by France. So this is why we decided to implement Concur via a core model.
Okay.
A few more things to consider. So I was mentioning that Concur is not an IT project. There are a few things to consider. I was talking about top management. This is crucial that if you choose to implement Concur, you have a strong sponsorship. So in our case, our CEO was sponsoring the project, and there was a very good level of visibility over the project. So there were communications about all of this, etc. In the same domain, change management / training. It's really important. Concur not being a technical project, this is really important that you spend time assisting your employees, assisting your customers, internal customers, on how to use Concur, to train them, and to organize this change management. Because in our case, for example, we implemented that travel policy, which was new in a lot of countries. So just implementing the technical tool Concur was not enough. People needed to be trained on how to use it and how to respect the policy.
And adapt to the new policy, right? Because the way of doing things changed for the best. Very well. And then, of course, you have to choose someone to be with you to implement the solution. So obviously, you chose us. So I imagine that's also an important issue, right? An important topic of your decision, an important topic to decide which partner to go along with us on an SAP Concur project.
Yes, this is correct. So one of the main elements to consider when choosing a partner to work on SAP Concur is to choose a certified SAP Concur partner. The second thing about Arago Consulting in our case was that we chose a partner that was able to help us throughout the project. So we were working closely with Arago Consulting to define our specs. So they were working with us when we defined the company policy. They were working with us during the functional design of the tool, etc., all the way through the project and all the way through hypercare. So this is the approach that we chose, and Arago helped us a lot on this.
Thank you very much, Cedric. So not just to implement the solution, but also to consult, to be with you in defining the strategy, the model, the approach, and then, of course, put our hands to work and implement the solution. That's just the technical bit. What's really important is all the process and the business that's behind it. Okay, thank you so much, Cedric.